Hi, this is project report number 1 for our project, which is the classic FPS matchmaking platform with chat. The group members are myself, Adam Boudra, Scott Ladd, and Talat Zerali. Um, for successes that we've experienced this term so far, we've successfully created the project management board in Trello, as you can see here, dividing up all the tasks and assigning them. We've created a source control infrastructure in a GitHub organization with multiple repositories, and we've also successfully created the team standards and requirements documents to provide a framework for our project going forward. Some of the challenges that we faced have been inconsistent communication and division of work, both of which could use more attention. Moving forward, we definitely want to improve that through having additional meetings and do a better job of distributing the workload earlier on. We also want to have dedicated meeting sessions focused on keeping our app user-centric, and in those meetings we want to discuss UX research, wireframing, and prototyping. For tasks, Scott got the ball rolling and set up the groundwork for a lot of different processes. He set up the GitHub org and the many GitHub repositories that we're using. He also created the demo code for the backend ASP.NET application and the front-end Angular application, and he created the send message function in the SignalR hub. I built on Scott's demo code, creating an Electron window, adding some UI changes to allow it to be a little bit more responsive, and I added some features like timestamps and storing message history in the lobby. And Talat did a lot of QA testing and bug fixing. She fixed a backend bug with the user's leaving logic. She tested the integration between the front end and the back end and the performance there, and also tested setting up the environment with both the front end and the back end repositories. For upcoming work, Scott is planning on working on the AWS infrastructure in both the front end and the back end. And he created a graphic that I'll go over later to show what that'll entail. I'm going to be doing some front end work and designing the wireframes and a prototype in Figma. I'm also going to be researching WebRTC, Socket.io, and MediaSoup, some technologies that we're going to be using to implement the voice chat in the future. And Talat is going to be working on setting up the login flow and creating some of the UI for creating and joining lobbies, and also creating the lobby creation endpoint in the backend application. There are no active blockers for me or Scott at this time. One blocker that Talat faced was npm permission issues when setting up the Angular CLI on her Mac, but using sudo install, she was able to get past that. For notable acts of teamwork, I kind of took it in my hands researching the proof of concept, researching Electron and creating a proof of concept with that, and I volunteered to be the Scrum Master to do video and demo for this first progress report. Scott was the one who, like I said earlier, he set up the GitHub repositories and created the initial applications. He set up the documents and shared them with all of us, and last week he reached out to all of us to ensure that we got an early start on progress report number 1. Talat actually, uh, sorry, Talat collaborated a lot with Scott to take ownership of the bug and coordinated testing with him on the code that he wrote for the backend and figure out what was going wrong. And she kept us all well updated on Trello and GitHub through her commit messages. For generative AI, Scott used it for syntax lookup primarily. He used ChatGPT to look up some of the SignalR syntax and TypeScript for invoking a hub method. The main benefit of that was the multiple examples that it provided. For me, I looked up, I used ChatGPT to explain some error messages that I was facing, specifically when building the Electron app. Files weren't serving correctly, so there was something wrong with the path redirection, and because it had the error messages, ChatGPT was able to give me a specific file location that it could tell me where I was going wrong. And for Talat, she used ChatGPT to surpass that blocker that she experienced with the permission issues in setting up her dev environment. And the step-by-step guidance that it provided saved a lot of time. I will now get into the demo. All right, I have the backend SignalR hub running in the background. This is the matchmaking app running on a localhost server that Scott set up. This is just being run through Angular. I'll have that off to the side. And then the Electron window is what I created. That will have it set up in its own separate window out of a browser. And that is hopefully the technology that we're going to use going forward for the final version of the application. I will kind of show the messaging functionality that's working currently. So I'll create test user 1, connect to the room. It'll show an alert. As you can see, the button changes color depending on the connection status. Now we're connected, and then once we're joined, it will change to joined. You can see that it populates there. We'll have test user 2 join as well. Now that both are there, I will send a test message saying hello from user 1. I'll say what's up from user 2. You can see it updates both actively in real time. Oh, I should probably go over the bug. The bug that Talat fixed was with the leaving logic. Once a user leaves, they should be removed from the list of users in the front end once that connection breaks, and she coordinated with Scott to take ownership of that bug and fix that along with some other minor changes throughout the app and just testing integration and all of that. Back to the slides. I'll just go over some other work that we completed throughout this term. Scott created this schema diagram to look at a couple of the different entities, that will be established in our database by going forward, such as lobbies, lobby games, memberships. That will be the lobby logic. The friendship system with the friendships and the friend requests, and the profile customization system with user avatars and avatars. Scott also created this diagram to show what the AWS infrastructure will look like going forward. He can explain it in greater detail, probably, but what it cracks down to is the entire service will be running in this VPC, the virtual private cloud. It'll be split between 2 availability zones to maximize availability, and then there will be 2 subnets, a private and a public, within each of the availability zones. And the app's databases will be running an Amazon RDS with MySQL. He also created this AWS deployment architecture graphic. It'll show that when we push up commits to our GitHub repos, it'll automatically trigger a GitHub action that will build the code, run the tests, build the image, and automatically update and push that to our deployment in AWS. And these are some user flow diagrams that I mocked up, showing some of the features that will be displayed in our MVP, which is mainly just the login flow, editing the profile, joining lobbies, and creating lobbies. Our stretch goals past the MVP will include customizing the profile with avatars, having friends and sending friend requests with a friend list, direct messages, voice chat, and more admin capabilities. And yeah, that wraps up that. Thank you for listening.